troubled by war, terrorism, weak and failed states, and civil unrest. But how did it get this way? The map of today's Middle East was mostly drawn after the First World War, the war that planted many of the seeds of conflict that still plague Israel, Palestine, Iraq, Syria, and even Iran today.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending, or maybe even good evening, depending where you're at in the world. It is March 1st, 2026. The show is live. For those that are going to ask in the audience, this is the Middle East in 30 minutes-ish. The ish is sometimes where the good stuff comes out. I have my boy Ghost. Let me bring him on. Dude, I just realized episode 26, dude.
Like, holy shit.
We got some numbers behind us on this, man. That's pretty solid.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of obvious. I'm sure some things that we'll be talking about today, the fog of war is something that becomes very real. And, we always talk about we're in an information war. We always talk about we're in the battlefield. And I always tell people the same rules, or maybe rules isn't the appropriate term, but the same variables that you have to account for that happen on the real kinetic battlefield, they're not absent in the information war. You just have to see what's that representation look like in the digital realm. And so when we look at, a physical kinetic war, we kind of understand the fog of war and what that looks like. And what I think a lot of people are experiencing right now is the fog of war in the digital sense. Yep. And if you go and you look at the way generals and just the brass or some of the legendary people we've heard about in our military, and you go and you study about how some of these men handled the fog of war, you don't have to figure it out from scratch. You just look at their concepts and you look at their theories and you'd be like, okay, let me use some of this to kind of help me navigate through this digital fog of war that we're going through. And we're going to get into that, folks. I know Ghost has a video I have not been able to see yet, so I'm looking forward to watching that. Let me just pay a bill real quick and get one of the amazing sponsors for you guys up on the screen, and then we'll get going. This one comes from Rumble Wallet, folks. They can freeze your accounts, shut off your cards. They did it to me. Lock you out of your own money overnight. Banks don't protect you. They control you. That's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can own Tether Gold, real gold on the blockchain. Through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars, each one fully allocated, verified by serial number, purity, and weight. This isn't paper gold. This isn't an IOU. This is real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can be redeemed for physical gold. That's power. And when you support creators on Rumble, you can tip them directly using the Rumble Wallet, peer-to-peer, and outside the banking system. No permissions, no middlemen, no cancel button. This wallet is yours forever. That button is somewhere around here. If you're watching on Rumble, if you're watching on a different platform, you're like, I'm in on that. Got to come to Rumble. Jump in the description if you're watching the replay. And if you're live, you will see that in the live chat right now. And it is very cool to see people that are using the tip jar and Rumble Wallet to send us, some support. Ghosts. What's on your mind, man?
Well, it's the same thing that's on everyone else's mind, and of course, war, right? So war question mark, I think is probably the better way to posit it, right? And yeah, I mean, as I was telling you before we went live, I don't really have a firm take on this. And just in terms of what to make of it all, I think there's different layers to it. There's different ways to look at it. There's the narrative of us going to war with Iran. That's the first layer. There's the layer of what's actually happened, what's actually happening, right? And then I think there's also the zooming out a little bit, what are the geopolitical implications regionally, worldwide, etc., right? Sovereign alliance, all that kind of stuff. So I think those are all kind of the those are the things that I've been thinking about and looking into. Just starting with owning it. I did not expect this to happen. This is something that I had been saying, that I didn't think we were going to go to war with Iran. I didn't think we were going to bomb it. I didn't think we were going to do any of that stuff. I was very surprised to hear that this was happening. The video you mentioned that I want to play would be the appearance by Eric Prince on Steve Bannon's show this morning. And Eric Prince, I think, is someone I thought he had a really solid take on the whole situation. Very similar to like almost identical to my take, and just given his background and his expertise, it coming from him probably lands a little harder than it coming from someone like me. So I thought it was probably worth just listening to that rather than me trying to emulate it. But before we get to that, let's start with the narrative, and then let's start with the geopolitical implications. I think that because I can certainly talk to those two things.
Well, to that point, let me offer you up two things real quick, because I found these very interesting. In the last couple of military operations, because Trump won't call them wars yet, in the last couple of military operations that he's done, every time he's come out, he's always come out live. And
he's always come out what? I'm sorry?
Live. Like he's done a live, press conference or whatever you want to do it. This time he uploads a video to Truth. Now that's an anomaly I don't think enough people are giving attention to.
Is that what he did? I missed that, I think.
Yeah. So the way we all found out about it is he uploaded the video to Truth. And then from there, everybody got it, started ripping it and putting it on different platforms. But he put the video on Truth. And so obviously, and the news networks that were playing it too, but they were playing it from if you go and you watch a lot of the beginning of their broadcasts, not all of them, but the big ones like CNN and Fox and those clowns all say, Trump just uploaded this on Truth Social. And so that was one of the very first things that I was like, this is an anomaly. Why? And none of us have the answers, but it's something that's worth putting in the thought process of, was it pre-recorded? And if so, when? Because I didn't watch, I heard some of the thing because he was in Texas earlier that day. And I heard some of the sound bites from the Texas stuff that he's doing because people were putting it on social media. But I was like, I want to go back and look at what he was wearing, because what I'm hearing, but I haven't confirmed it. That's why I don't want to put a rubber stamp on it yet, that it was the same outfit that he was wearing earlier in the day. So I was like, did Trump record this while he was at one of these events? And I don't know. I'm offering thoughts here to you in the audience. So that was the first one. And then the second one, completely, separate thought process is Trump doesn't want a war. We know he doesn't. He campaigned on it, and he knows that one of his strong points is to be able to say, I'm fulfilling campaign promises. So if he ends up in an extended war, because he does say endless wars to give him that, words matter. But I know he wants to prevent them. Now, depending on, what conspiracy theory, you or others subscribe to, is if someone is going to do something that's going to initiate a war, and then you're going to have to respond to that, then that means it's Sun Tzu, right? It's their battlefield, it's their terms, it's their timeline. And if you know that a war is what they need for their narrative at a specific point because of what they have planned, could you not kick off something early and be premature about it to disrupt their narrative? And this is, like I said, this is just thoughts that I'm throwing out there because I got a million thoughts like you trying to figure this out. But with that, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, no, those are really good points. And so I'll be honest, like I'm looking at his True Social thing right now. So I was like Friday afternoon, evening, I succumbed to my kids have been sick for like a week or for like a month. And then so I finally got it. So I was in bed from like 8 p.m. Friday until like well into the morning on Saturday, which for me is late because my kids always waking up super early. So I didn't even check into like social media until like Saturday afternoon. And by then it was like, everyone was like, oh, we're at war. I was like, oh shit. Okay. So I've missed like a solid 12 hours of news here. So I didn't even catch the True Social video from Trump. I'm gonna have to go watch that now. And frankly, haven't really been checking that much. Once I missed kind of the initial of it, I was like, you know what? Let's just let the news cycle carry over the weekend. And we'll see what happens. Because once it's up and running, it's like everyone is just, the emotions are high and everyone is just yelling at each other and everyone's angry. Right. So to your point, let's back up and talk about the narrative, because I think the narrative is really important here. You're right. Trump does not want war. That's what he's always said. He campaigned on it. He promised he would never do it. He mocked Obama endlessly about the war with Iraq, how the war happened. You know, I myself, like I'm just going to be consistent, and I'm not going to like revise my own history. I've been very adamant about not going to war with Iran for a number of reasons. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's our national security interest. I don't think it does anything for us as a country. Even if you want to assume that Iran is as evil as Mark Levin says that they are, and that they're going after a nuclear bomb and all those things, even though Tulsi Gabbard said they aren't, in all of our national, like our intelligence community under Tulsi Gabbard and Dan Ratcliffe came out with a report in October, said that they weren't going after a bomb even before the Israelis bombed them last June. But even if you wanted to assume that they were going after a bomb and they were super evil and all those things, I just don't think it's in our national security interest to do that, like to start a war with them. It just isn't, for a number of reasons. Like, and that's before you even get to Russia, China, the rest of the Middle East, like destabilizing all of that. Just us, Israel, and Iran. Like, I don't think it's worth it. Then you get to the fact that Iran is like a very serious military, a very powerful military, far more powerful than Iraq was 25 years ago, far more powerful than Afghanistan was 20 years ago. Just above and beyond anything we faced in decades, generations, right? In terms of having a full Navy, a full Air Force, full artillery, like full array of missiles, all that stuff. I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze, whatever the juice is. And I still don't really quite understand what the juice is, but I guess maybe we'll learn more about that in the time being. But from a narrative perspective, the narrative has been for 2 months now, ever since these protests started, which was sometime around Christmas. And then we captured Maduro, and then that really kicked into high gear. The protests kicked into high gear. But the narrative really has been for quite some time now that it's Israel that wants to go to war with Iran, and that Trump is kind of their racehorse that they're riding into that war. Like Trump is the war horse that they're riding into the battlefield. And that seems to be pretty widely understood by most people. I think most people recognize that Israel is the one that's really pushing this thing. And that's clearly obvious when you go online and you look at the influencers who are promoting it. So to your point, it's like, whose war is it? Who starts it? Like with Sun Tzu, it's like, if you start it as opposed to letting them starting it, you know, there's like cost benefit analysis. I get it. Then you can go to like the Chris Paul war, like way of looking at things. Like, is there even a war happening, or is it just story and narrative? Like, are we just being told something? I mean, some of the stuff I've seen going back and forth in our private chat this morning that I thought, and I missed DPH last night, so I have no idea what Chris and John were talking about. But I saw like Chris and Burning Bright talking about how there seems to be like narrative agreement between Trump and the Iranians on like what's happened. Like Trump's like, oh, we did this, we killed this guy, and then the Iranians came out and they're like, yes, this person's dead. And it's like there's consistency there between what happened with Maduro and like what happened with the 12-day war last year. And so now let's go back to the 12-day war from last year, which I think that was a hybrid of actuals and narrative. I think what happened with the 12-day war was that the Israelis started a war with Iran. From what I've read, from what I've seen, like Chinese have put out stuff, or writers have put out stuff based on what the Chinese have been speculating or saying. It sounds like that situation, the Israelis had successfully infiltrated Iranian intelligence and Iranian security architecture, and they basically shut down a lot of this like the anti-air stuff. And then so they were able to fly deeper into Iran. They came in from the north across the Black Sea, from places like Azerbaijan, and because of that, like sabotage, like the saboteur, like the infiltration and sabotage, like the fifth column, as the Chinese refer to it, this fifth column infiltration before a kinetic attack. That like is a new chapter in warfare, according to the Chinese. And it marks like a whole new evolution in warfare. But it totally changed everything in the way that the Chinese are approaching things. It totally changed the way that they're looking at their own people. It totally changed the way that Iran is looking at their own people. And then all of that gets capped off with Trump stepping in and saying, you know what? We're going to send we're sending our B2s, blowing up everything. It's done. And then after it was all supposed to be done, Netanyahu sends more planes. And that was when Trump said, Netanyahu doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Like, bring the planes back. We're done. It's over. Feels like to me, and how the hell do I know? I'm just a guy reading newspaper articles, basically. It seems to me like basically Trump was trying to stop it. And the best way to stop it was to cap it off with a attack that was like, oh, we knocked out the whole reason we're doing this is to knock out their nuclear capabilities. So, yep, it's done. We bombed Ferda. We bombed their nuclear sites. They can't do anything about it. Now, let's just assume for a second that we actually did send a B2 and we actually did blow up Ferda and we actually did all the things that Operation Midnight Hammer claims to have achieved. Again, the official narrative, when you go and you look at it, and the Iranians have agreed with Trump on all this, the Iranians are like, yes, this happened, is that those facilities were empty for months. There was no equipment there. There was even the Israelis agree on this. There was no nuclear enriched material there. It's like there were no people in it. It was all empty. So we went and we bombed a bunch of concrete bunkers, basically, that used to be labs, that used to be nuclear labs or whatever. Nobody died. No equipment was destroyed. No nuclear material was destroyed. That's actually one of the arguments the Israelis have used for continuing the war, is that we didn't get the nuclear material. The Russians have offered to go in there and collect all the nuclear material and bring it back to Moscow. So again, it's like, well, what do we actually really achieve there? What we achieved is ending the war. Trump said, it's done. The 12-day war. We're moving on. So was that Trump's war? No, it really wasn't Trump's war. It was Netanyahu's war that Trump ended, right? Trump came in and kind of pulled the two children apart and said, we're done. It's over. Let's go back to the negotiating table. So that's different, obviously, from what's happened here, because what we're being told is that the Americans started the war this time. However, it's very obvious that all the rhetoric has been that if Trump doesn't do it, the Israelis are going to start it. And the Israelis have even been like, maybe we should just go ahead and start it, and the Americans can come in and finish it. I even saw the other day that this is like a ridiculous leak. I mean, I can't even believe the leak is real. But the leak, I think, from to Axios or somebody from a U.S. official, was what the U.S. prefers to happen, what the Trump White House prefers to happen, is for Israel to start the war, Israel to go first, Israel to get attacked, and then the U.S. can step in as the defender of Israel and continue the war on Israel's behalf, which doesn't make any sense. I think that's a stupid thought, because that's not, everyone's going to understand what it is one way or the other. But like all these different,
but those are leak operations too.
Oh, because, for sure. I think all that's like canary trap, like figure out who the leaker is, figure out who can be trusted, like figure out who, like where the OPSEC is, like yes. And then like confuse the enemy. I think a lot of us just confuse the enemy, confuse everybody.
The same thing with General Kane. You had a large amount that came out and said, hey, he's advised the Pentagon, war with Iran would, sever our relationships with our allies. The cost of the amount of troops that we would lose would not position us for what's next, which I think is very important in that leak anyways, because what was he referencing in what's next? And I think that plays into this conversation. And again, it confuses the enemy, but it also identifies who the leaks were.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So as far as the narrative goes, the things that I'm looking for here, because it's too early, I think, to make sense of any of this. We're like 36 hours into this thing. So like, it's too early to make any sense of what's actually happening and what can be believed and what has actually occurred. So what I want to see when all the dust settles, because all we're getting reports of right now are that IRGC leaders are being killed. And there's two different factions, two different elements to the Iranian government leadership. There is the civilian government, which is like the president, that's Pezeshkian, the prime minister, that is or the foreign minister, that's Arakchi, right? So you have Pezeshkian, Arakchi, like those guys, the guys who are like the plainclothes leaders. So you've seen a lot of in the past few months. You've seen them going on Fox News. You've seen them going on mainstream media to make their case. those are the guys going and meeting with Wickoff and Kushner and all them. And then you have the IRGC, which are like, that's the religious, like zealot, like military element of it, right? And what we do know from that is that during the 12-day war, my understanding, there are pictures of that's the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah is the head of the IRGC. And so my understanding of the situation in the 12-day war is that the Ayatollah, there are pictures of him in a hospital bed. There was rumors that he was on hospice care. I actually think he might have been dead at that point already. I actually don't even know if he was alive. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody might correct me, I don't think he's made a public appearance since the 12-day war. I don't think he's been seen publicly. We've gotten reports of things he said, but I haven't seen a video of him. I haven't seen audio. I haven't seen pictures. I haven't seen him anywhere. So I think that the reason that if he was dead, they wouldn't have told us is because they don't want to replace him. They don't want a new Ayatollah. What has been reported and what is understood is that they did totally restructure the IRGC after the 12-day war. They did the Iranian devolution back in August when they created the Defense Council because they understood that they had been infiltrated. They restructured their security and intelligence infrastructure, like hierarchy and infrastructure. And basically, the Ayatollah was removed from the chain of command, where the Ayatollah is basically a figurehead now and no longer dictates anything. And it's all basically run by like intelligence officials and generals. So again, like the claim that the Ayatollah is like this big threat is like, well, is he really? He sounds like he's kind of like King Charles. Like, is the king really running anything in Britain, or is he just like a figurehead? That's kind of what the Ayatollah, it sounds like, is now. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't zealots in the IRGC. There certainly could be. I don't know anything about it because I don't live there and I'm not part of it. But again, like, narrative is important. And the narrative that the mainstream narrative that most people understand about Iran is just not actually the case when you dig into the actuals of what has changed there, specifically over the past 12 months. Now, all these people that they're announcing as being killed they're all from the IRGC. They're not from like the civilian side of the government. Like Pezeshkian hasn't been reported killed, Arakchi, any of those guys who are all the moderates who are the ones who are trying to cut these deals. And one of the things that I thought was really encouraging that I saw the other day that I thought was going to be like lead to a major breakthrough was this. Iran offered, let's see, where is it? Iran apparently during this meeting on Thursday in Geneva, Iran offered like all of these resources. They offered rare earth, they offered oil, they offered gas. This is it right here. Here, share my screen. And this made me laugh because I've been speculating this for a while. I was like, I kind of felt like this whole Iran thing was going to end with Trump announcing some major economic trade deal. And it still might end this way, by the way, which would be funny. But Iran may dangle commercial bonanza to woo Trump. Tehran is reportedly weighing oil, gas, and mining incentives as part of nuclear talks to avert escalation. And this is kind of what I think was going to happen, is like they're going to offer us all these incredible rare earth, incredible resources they have in their country, and then we were going to do like business with them, which is what Trump loves to do. He loves to. And if we were to achieve this, just like we did with Venezuela, that would represent like the cornerstone of the golden age in world peace. Because if America and Iran can make peace and do business together, then anybody can make peace, right?
Let me ask you this real quick, Ghost, and I know I'm going to be asking for a lot of speculation in this show, folks, and just understand that.
That's all we're doing here, speculating.
Yeah. Is, if it's the civilian portion of Iran's government that was meeting with Wickoff and going on mainstream media, do you think that there's a theory out there that these guys, when they're meeting with Wickoff and Kushner, those guys are like, look, we can't do these things you want because of the IRGC. It's not going to happen. And
that's a really, really good point. It's a really interesting point. And I mean, possibly that is certainly possible. I mean, who am I to say no, that's impossible, right? I do think that when we took out Soleimani in 2020, that changed a lot of the that just changed things, I think, in Iran. I think that's the reason that Iran that seemed so reasonable when like it was responding to Israel. Remember the story Trump told when Soleimani was killed, that they called and said, hey, we have to save face we have to save face. We're going to fire some missiles into the desert. Like, don't make anything of it. And they just like fired some missiles.
Not going to hit nothing.
Yeah, didn't hit anything. And they're like, yeah, we just have to save face. Trump was like, yeah, do what you got to do. It's cool. Like, doesn't really sound like the zealots we were told they are, right? So, and that was 6 years ago. So again, like, it's just hard to make sense of any of this stuff. And like, what is real? Like, what are we actually being told is truthful? I don't know. So again, we're just speculating. We're totally speculating.
One of the things that I said, and a lot of people were very upset with me back when I said it, and I'll probably repost this old article. This is probably like 2 years ago now, if not longer. But I said, look, you're going to see a regime change in 2 countries for sure. And we could definitely expand that over the things that have happened over the last 2 years. But I said, you will see a regime change in Iran, and you will see a regime change in Israel. Like, these things are inevitable from my perspective. I go, but it's not regime change like we've always known it. Because when you say regime change, all of us are gonna be like, no, that's bad. We should be completely against it. And that is the appropriate thought there. Like, I'm not gonna pretend it's not. But I've always said, and me and you have talked about this, I don't know on this show, but I know we've talked about it, is, every time there's a regime change, it's because the deep state is putting a government into power that the deep state can control. And it's never at the benefit of the people. It never has been. And so the argument that I've always had is this deep state globalist network has infiltrated every grassroots organization across the world. Any militia, any organized, like, you just think about any good group, the deep state globalists have infiltrated. They've infiltrated it for a long time for people that are lying in wait, so that if that government ever collapsed and that regime was exposed, this grassroots organization that gets put into place is just a rebranded, deep state, new faces, new names, new flags, new logos, but same mechanism. Well, what I was talking about is we need a final regime change where we're assisting these other countries. That way we can cut ties and know that these people can take care of it on their own. And that's why I asked that question about, could the civilian aspect of this government be people that are like, look, we will tell you where these guys are. We will give you the intelligence for this because we want this for our country. We want these, but our country's infiltrated. And it just makes me kind of like, I think there's a lot. I don't think there's just one reason that this happened. I think there's a multitude of reasons why it happened. I think we just need to pinpoint it to what are the top 3 reasons.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. And to be clear, like, I don't think this war is fully narrative. Like, I think the war last year, like the 12-day war, was purely narrative. Nor do I think that the Gaza war was narrative or anything like that. Like, I think there actually are like kinetic things happening. And one of the reasons I've been so like vocally against the idea of starting a war with Iran is because having never been to war, I understand the cost of it. And it's not just the soldiers who die in the war and the money that's spent on the war, but it's also like the fallout from the war. Like, the Middle East can't have peace if Israel and Iran are at having a war with one another, with the U.S. involved. Like, that's just, there can't be a golden age. Like, you don't get a golden age with a war with Iran, regardless. Like, that's just a fact. So to your question, I will be interested to see what happens next. I'll be interested to see how does the civilian government respond to all of this? How does this impact what is going on between Trump? Because from a purely narrative standpoint, here's what bothers me about like the way this happened. We're negotiating with them. Now, who knows how the negotiations are going? We're being told one thing and another. Like, the Iranians have actually been pretty positive. They've been saying, they walked out on Thursday and said, negotiations are actually going pretty well. We actually like the way this is going. We think there's real progress. We think there's something that can be achieved. Trump came out and said he was really mad that the negotiations were going terribly, right? And that kind of has happened a few times now. Over and over and over again, like, we're being told that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Okay. And Iran's like, we don't want a nuclear weapon. We just want to enrich uranium for medical purposes and for a civil nuclear energy program, because we have nuclear reactors already. We have since 1975. The U.S. built our first nuclear reactor. The Russians finished it. So yeah, like, let's see how all this works. Like, let's see what happens next. Before I get too far down a rabbit hole on a take one way or the other, let's see how this all plays out. But let me point this out to you, Alpha. So this is Rouhani, right? Hassan Rouhani was the president of Iran from 2013 to 2021, right? Look at the way he dresses. He was a mullah, okay? This was after him, Raisi, okay? Ibrahim Raisi. He was the president from 2001 until 2024, also a mullah. Look at the way he dresses, okay? You'll recall that Raisi died in a helicopter crash in northern Iran, right? Coming back from Azerbaijan, right? Also a mullah. This is Pezeshkian, the current president, who won an election in 2024 and became the president. A heart surgeon, a moderate, a reformer, someone who wants to reform the country, bring it away from its like radical zealot position, like branding, and just normalize it the same way that MBS normalized Saudi Arabia, right? A heart surgeon, not a mullah, not a radical zealot, not a religious like a crazy religious guy. Look at the way he dresses, right? So, and the official narrative is that this guy won an election in Iran and then was allowed to take office. So, is Iran really as crazy as like Netanyahu and Mark Levin claim they are if they allow this guy to become president and take office? I question all that. I question that, like, can they really be that out of control if they allowed a heart surgeon to run for president, win office, and then take the presidency? It's just it doesn't quite. The arithmetic just isn't adding up, in my opinion.
Well, to that point, let me ask you this,
Mhm.
and we'll ask this question down the line because I want to keep reevaluating it. I've always said that Israel has two boogeymen, right? Iran is the big boogeyman, and Hamas is the little boogeyman. And we've seen how Trump has been clipping the wings of Hamas, everything that was going around with the Gaza conflict, etc. If through this combat operation / war that's happening, Trump comes out on the other end of this a week from now, 30 days from now, and says the people of Iran have taken over their government. They're having fair elections. These people are in power. Our guys are on the ground, confirming, and they'll continue to confirm that there is no nuclear existential threat coming out of Iran. Like, he paints a picture that, folks, they are no threat. And I am putting my name stamp on that. How does that change or impact Israel's ability to create this atmosphere that they've done for who knows how many years now? We got to do this fight. We got to do this fight. We got to position here. We got to do this. If the big boogeyman just gets annihilated, what does that force Bibi and Israel to do?
Yeah. It's like they don't have a boogeyman anymore, right? Well, Naftali Bennett, who is one of the two favorites to win the election in Israel for prime minister in October, are Naftali Bennett and Yair Lapid. And Naftali Bennett already said last week that Turkey is the new Iran. So they're already like recalibrating their targeting to Turkey. So they're saying Turkey is actually now the one that we need to be going after. Iran is Iran, but now we need to be going after. So this isn't going to end with Iran, guys. And maybe that's the point. Like, to your point, maybe the point is like to show everyone it's never going to be enough. Once we turn Iran into a crater, then it's going to be Turkey's turn. Then it's going to be Saudi Arabia's turn. Then it's going to be, it's never going to be enough. It's just going to be one country after the next. And that's a really good place to take it. I see somebody in the chat saying, well, what if they stole the election? Maybe. I mean, is any election in the world real? Like, who knows? But I would posit this. If they were stealing elections in Iran, by the way, has their own central banking system. Their banking system is not part of the Rothschild banking system. It's one of the big problems that our bankers have with Iran and Venezuela, by the way. That was another situation with Venezuela. Why wouldn't they install somebody like super crazy, who's like as wild-eyed as they claim the Iranians are, who's like a crazy zealot who would warrant, like, be the villain that they need him to be to actually warrant like a war and get the entire MAGA coalition behind a war with Iran, right? I mean, that would make a little more sense if they could install whoever they wanted in Iran. Instead, they're installing someone who's a heart surgeon who like seems way more reasonable, someone who, when he gets on television, actually sounds like a pretty normal guy. I don't know. Like, that doesn't really seem like that would be the play if you actually wanted to encourage conflict with this country. But we'll see. Like, let's talk about the geopolitics of it. Like, you remember I drew a version of this map on this show. This is a different version of it, but the idea being the green being Saudi Arabia is kind of this linchpin that has built this security architecture in the Middle East. The red countries kind of being the border countries of the Middle East. Saudi Arabia now has security agreements with all of them. Pakistan, Turkey, Egypt. Egypt and Turkey now have a security agreement. Pakistan and Turkey have always had military and security agreements. And then the purple being the two major trade routes that connect East Asia with Europe. And one of them obviously goes through Iran. So the question to me will be, how does this security architecture hold up and withstand what's happening right now with Iran? Because this is a major test for the Middle East. Like, is the Middle East just going to collapse and fall apart and everyone's going to start hating each other again and attacking one another, which Israel would love that to happen? Or is it going to hold up and withstand and still be, is the fortress still going to be standing when the dust clears? That's a big question for me that I want to see. I want to see, because Iran is not ostensibly part of the security architecture yet, but there's a lot of like momentum towards that. Like, I fully expect Iran to join all of this in due time. So we'll see how that holds up, because it's very important for the region to be strong and the region to withstand something like this, especially like from a narrative standpoint. And so, yeah, I mean, from there, I think I would just probably play this Eric Prince clip, because I think it's like 9 minutes, so I think it's worth listening. The whole thing, we can pause it throughout to discuss. But yeah, I mean, he obviously has way more insight from a military standpoint than I do. And again, like, this guy is like the prince of mercenaries, right? I mean, he's the one who was advocating for a military overthrow of Venezuela in 2018, until he went and met with Dulce Rodriguez in Mexico City in 2019. And then he was like, okay, you know what? We actually might be able to figure something else out.
Eric, it seems like it's not as intense as the strike that ended the 12-day war, but spectacular results, correct? I mean, they took out the Ayatollah and his top 40 guys, having a picnic lunch in the afternoon or gathering. The intelligence was pretty special in the fact they took the Ayatollah and 40 of his top guys out, sir.
So right there, I want to address that too. One thing you'll notice, Alpha, when you go read the Bible or you go read like anything from this part of the world, the Middle East, 40 is a very common number. And what I learned when I started learning about this part of the world years ago, is that when you hear the word 40, the number 40, what it just means is many. It just means dozens. So like 40 days and 40 nights, right? Alibaba and his 40 thieves, right? 40 days in the desert. It just means dozens. So instead of saying in Middle Eastern culture, instead of just saying dozens and dozens, they'll just say 40, and it could be 30, it could be 60, it could be 100, but it just means many, 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 like dozens and dozens and dozens. So I think it's interesting. Whenever I hear him report the number 40, I just always think, okay, well, that actually doesn't mean 40. It could be way more than 40. It could be way less than 40. It is interesting, though, that they're like, oh, we did one strike and now the Ayatollah's dead and all the top commanders in the IRGC are all dead. It's like, well, that's convenient from a narrative standpoint.
Look, Steve, it's I'm not happy about the whole thing. I don't think this was in America's interest. It's going to uncork a significant can of worms and chaos and destruction in Iran now. Who takes over? You still have tens, hundreds of thousands of IRGC people that will be positioning to be number two, to be the next rulers of that country. I don't see how this is in keeping with the president's MAGA commitment. I'm disappointed.
Well, talk to us about that, because I've been putting up on social media. He said regime change. He made this comment the other night. The Ayatollah's gone. His 40 top guys are gone. Don't you just toss it to the Persians and say, because he keeps saying, rise up from the streets. I haven't seen massive demonstrations or massive people coming out in Tehran. There have been some running around shouting they're supporting it, but is the plan to decapitate? Do you think the president's accomplished that and now can just move on?
I think Yeah, and again, who comes after that? I don't know that there's a plan. These are ultimately solved by ground combat. I don't think a regime has ever been changed by air power alone. It's wishful thinking, and now it is indeed cost American lives. I don't buy the argument that it was only because of they were doing it to preempt. When
Can
you
pause it there,
load
Griff?
that many troops and that many aircraft in the immediate area, you could almost guarantee a response. But again, how does the regime get changed? I don't think that Reza Pahlavi is a strong enough leader to, even though there may be some protest in Iran asking for him to come back, there's an absence of security apparatus to get him done, to get him actually in power.
Tell the audience about Chalabeh. He's the Pahlavi bringing the Shahs, the monarchist. Remember, everybody in LA, when he sees people in LA, everybody in London, their parents all left with the Shah. So they're monarchists. The monarchy solution here is as close to ridiculous.
Yeah. So just for those who aren't tracking what they're talking about, Reza Pahlavi is the guy you've seen getting trotted around on the media, like the Crown Prince, right? Well, the only reason he's the Crown Prince is because his father was installed in 1953 by the CIA when the CIA overthrew Mogadishu, because Mogadishu came into office and nationalized the oil, took the oil away from the British. And so then he was overthrown. The Shah was installed. And because the Shah was installed, his family became the royal bloodline and his son became the Crown Prince. And then the only reason the Shah was overthrown by the CIA again was because 25 years later, after he signed the 25-year consortium agreement, which gave all the oil back to Britain, that expired in 1979, and he refused to renew it because he was unhappy with the Yom Kippur War. So that's what happened. And then when Bannon says all these Iranians in London and LA who are monarchists, those are all the people who fled Iran with the Shah because they were being thrown out. And so, yeah, of course, they're going to support this guy. But Reza Pahlavi grew up in a suburb in Maryland outside of D.C. in a $25 million mansion. He's lived there his whole life, ever since he was 17 years old. He's never been back to Iran. He's a D.C. parasite, basically. And yeah, he's no better than Maria Corina Machado. He is the Maria Corina Machado of Iran. And then when they're talking about Chalabeh, he was the guy that they were going to install in Iraq 25 years ago as the monarchist. But even less people knew who he was.
Now, real quick before you hit play, things that I want you and the audience to consider, especially if you're not familiar with who Eric Prince is. Yeah, he was the former CEO of Blackwater way back in the day. I had friends that worked under this guy's company. His fields, he also former Navy SEAL and stuff like that. So he's squared away when it comes to those things. He profits from war.
Yes.
That result in ground conflicts.
Yes.
Not air conflicts, not ocean conflicts,
ground invasion
conflicts, because it's a contractors organization. Yeah, him and another one, Silent Professionals. There's a bunch of them that are out there. I know, I get the emails, folks. So one of the things that he says right here, and this is the first time hearing it, folks. I just want to be clear on that, is when he says we've never done a regime change by just airstrikes. He knows this is not just airstrikes. He knows that there's an intelligence apparatus that's embedded here. And why I personally feel like we got to finish listening to what he's saying is what's happening now is exactly what I was talking about earlier, is a legitimate regime change that's in the benefit of the people because it's for the people and not something that's in for the military industrial complex, not something that's for the globalists or the deep state. And these guys are not being involved in that. You're talking billions of dollars, folks, when it comes to contractors and, VIP, executive protection, all the things that these guys offer. The other part, now we could just go with, we can continue. I just wanted to make that point.
And to your point, remember in 2018, he offered Trump 5,000 mercenaries to invade Venezuela and do that to Venezuela. He was like, I will give you 5,000 mercenaries to go overthrow Maduro, until he met with Delcy Rodriguez a year later. And then he came back and said, you know what? I think we can do this. We can do this another way.
That's the other thing too with Pahlavi. You remember you just said her name, the one that everybody kept saying was going to take over Venezuela.
Maria Corina Machado.
And everyone pushing it. And then what did Trump came out and he's just like, nah. Like,
Yeah, no.
Ain't gonna happen. You're seeing that right now too.
Oh, he already did it to that guy. He's like, yeah, that guy doesn't have the respect. Like, he did, like, none of the people respect him. Like, he could never walk in there and take over the place. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know he made that statement. I was.
Oh yeah, he said that. He said that like a month or two ago. He said that.
Oh, nice.
Right around the time he poo-pooed the idea of Maria Corina Machado. He was like, yeah, Pavlovi, nice guy, but I don't think he really is the guy. He's not our guy in Iran. So.
As you can get, he's like Chalabeh, which, as you know, was on Fox News in the run-up to Iraq War. This guy was going to be the Iraq, Congress, National Congress. So he got over there. Nobody ever heard of the guy, and he got swept up in the annals of history. Never, dustbin of history, never be heard from again. Are the monarchist a reasonable alternative? And tell people how deep the IRGC goes and how deep the security apparatus with the mullahs goes in Iran.
The IRGC is the most powerful force in the country. They're the ones that made money from all the sanctions. They control the guns and the muscle, not even the Iranian army. So I don't know what the plan is to name some interim leader. I am discouraged, and it will uncork a lot of chaos in the area. And I really wonder, what is the plan if there is not a clear successor person that actually takes power to try to keep some kind of interim government together? It's and subjecting our foreign policy to Israeli foreign policy, I have real issue with that. I said it before. I said it weeks ago in your show. Not that this should not be the path forward. The president chose to do it. I just wonder who pressured him that much to do it this way.
You're one of the president's biggest supporters. You've worked around and with the administration the first time. I've known you now for what, 15, almost 20 years. You are certainly America first, but you've seen all the conflict all over the world. You've been supportive of what the president's done to date, particularly in things like Venezuela, although and for hemispheric defense, a lot of people are not even happy with that. Just let's walk through this, because you're an important voice here. Why are you disappointed with what the president's actions have been?
If there is a viable ground force that could seize and hold terrain and control terrain, then I guess air power and a decapitation strike makes more sense to me. But clacking off against the leadership and leaving a real void right now, I'm concerned that it's going to ensue with a lot of chaos, because who knows what other weapons the Iranians have stocked away and they're going to unleash on the region, or what they would do inside the United States now. So it is undoubtedly a bold move. I hope it was the president's decision alone to do this, and that he wasn't arm twisted by supporters or billionaire donors around him to do this.
They're saying now, Axios reports that if there had been a viable diplomatic solution, and the reporting is pretty deep on this, that Kushner and Witkoff did think they were getting tapped along at the end, that the Persians really weren't addressing the issues the Americans needed to address, particularly ballistic missiles and other things about the nuclear program. Do you believe it's a correct response the president's put down? They can't have a nuclear weapon, and I'm not really getting anywhere in negotiations to go in and take out the leadership? Or do you think there's it's so deep in the mullah bench, in the IRGC bench, that you're just going to get even worse bad hombres up there?
Why are we so worried about nuclear weapons now if we had all these strikes a few months ago that supposedly eliminated their nuclear program? Again, if
you want to pause it right there,
regimes get changed.
So here's something and this is where China comes in and play. And me and Josh talk about it, and there's a few others that do, but yeah, a lot of China military transports that were coming back into Iran over the last few weeks. And if you guys remember, during that first strike, there was China transports that went in, turn off their beacons, and then were there for a period of time and then left. And it's speculation, but were they removing some of the nuclear warheads and taking them to China, and then China was bringing them back? Because China won't do a direct attack on the United States unless, like, literally they had no other choice. China has every intention of doing what I think Trump is doing, war by proxy. I can't do it, but I'm going to create these allies. I'm going to arm these allies. I'm going to put these people in a position to make these moves that we did. And I think it's a whole other, agenda that's really, I won't say really going on, but in addition to what's going on. But, there's just that. I want it off for that thought, but you can continue to play it.
Interesting.
By yes, removing the top management, taking away the inevitability, but then having a viable replacement. I have yet to see any evidence that there's a viable replacement anywhere that can actually seize control of what was a significant empire. 90 million people, intelligent, hardworking, with a lot of tech and a lot of capability, is not an easy endeavor to accomplish. And so the air power alone, I'm concerned, and I'm concerned that this was not our fight, that this is Israel's fight that we got dragged into. And already 3 Americans dead, 5 seriously wounded. That's troubling to me.
You said you had to have a substantial ground force to really do regime change here. You're not implying that would have to be an American. You're saying Israel
no.
or some combination of UAE.
Not Israel, or not UAE. Iranians, Iranians from across the ethnic spectrum there that are willing to take up arms and go against the IRGC and free themselves.
So they have a huge army that's not our IRGC. Now, it may be equivalent to a militia. But you're arguing that to see regime change here, that army or some part of that organized that's not IGRC, or maybe some rebel units from that, are going to have to lead the Persian people against the apparatus?
Yeah, I mean, the natural option here would be the Kurds, the Iraqi Kurds, supporting the Iranian Kurds to do it. But this is an extremely bold move. I don't know why it was decided that I had to do it now. I'm shocked, and I'm just wondering what political pressure was brought to bear for the president to make this, because this is certainly not what he campaigned on.
Real quickly, we got 2 minutes. I know you got to bounce. Because I know the president respects your opinion. If you had a chance to talk to the president today, what would be Eric Prince's recommendations to the commander-in-chief?
Don't ever contemplate ground troops in Iran.
You think that's even a possibility?
I didn't think this was a possibility today, over the last couple of days, Steve. I didn't really think that was that he was going to do it.
Eric Prince, where can people track you? I know you got a podcast. You've been busy all over the world, particularly in places like Haiti, chasing down bad guys, bad hombres.
Okay. And so before anyone says, well, there's never going to be a ground invasion of Iran, that would be insane. Over a year ago, I was actually talking about this after Syria collapsed. This is what Israel wanted in Syria. See this yellow and blue? The dash?
I do.
They call it David's Corridor. And so the reason we would be able to secure this for them, so they already control right now, they control this whole area down here around Sueda. We have this base, the Tomf base, that is a major U.S. military base in southern Syria, which allegedly we are we're pulling everyone out of Syria now. That's what Trump said. We also have a significant military presence in Jordan and obviously in Iraq, which is right here on this border. And so, and then with the Kurds up here, east of the Euphrates River, my speculation has been is that the reason the Israelis wanted this corridor is they wanted a land bridge to Kurdistan, which is this yellow area up here. And once they reach Kurdistan, the Kurds are their friends. They've always been good friends with the Kurds. The Kurds could help them this is Kurdistan, a larger map of Kurdistan, right? The Kurdistan goes deep into Turkey and Iran, as well as Iraq. The Kurds could help them get into Iran. And so I've speculated that Israel wanted a land bridge into Iran via southern Syria. If they can reach the Euphrates, they can get to the Kurds. The Kurds could then help them get into Iran. I don't know. I mean, yeah, does it sound crazy? It definitely sounds crazy, but crazier things have happened. And like Eric Prince just said, like he never thought this was going to happen. I never thought this was going to happen. Like us actually bombing Iran for Netanyahu, which is what this is. I mean, let's be honest. That's what this is actually all about. So yeah, and that's kind of the last thing I would just mention is that, like, who is this really for? I mean, it's not for the American people. Like, if you think that bombing Iran is going to make your daily life better, is going to make the price of eggs go down or the price of gas, it's definitely not going to make the price of gas go down. If anything, the price of gas is going to go up because Iran is a major global supplier of oil. But yeah, I mean, this is I think reinforces the idea from a narrative standpoint that Israel has undue influence on the White House, undue influence on our government, even undue influence on Trump. And yeah, I want to think that Trump made this decision on his own and he did it himself. But all you have to do is look around and see who's celebrating the hardest over this. And it's not the hardcore MAGA America First people. It's Laura Loomer and Mark Levin.
There's definite benefits that Israel's going to come off of, and this is the part where two things can be true at the same time. Is there a hyper inflated threat when people talk about, the Muslim Brotherhood and terrorists that exist in the United States coming from people like Mark Levin and Loomer and others? Yes. But is there still an actual threat of the Muslim Brotherhood and terrorist organization in the United States? The answer is yes. And so what a lot of people I think do is they do exploit that threat exists because they want to push a narrative. It just, the counter argument, or not the counter argument to that, but the counter perspective is there's, a lot of people that will solely focus on AIPAC's influence into the United States government. Now, does that mean that their line is not true? No. Oh, absolutely. AIPAC and Israeli intelligence has its claws into the United States government, but it's not the only one. Mm-hmm. So does the CCP. So does the Muslim Brotherhood. So does Big Pharma. Almost every large, major institution has that. And so there are moves that have to be made that are going to benefit people in their agenda, but also to Eric Prince's position right here. The way Trump is going about this, and if you judge Trump on the few military operations that he's done, they've all ended in something relatively fast. Now, paying attention to what Trump said is he didn't give any indicators that this one would be quick. And I picked up on that from his speech. He said, hey, it may go on this long and it may go on that long. So he's opening it up. And I think that's because of contingencies that he already has planned. Their objective is to end it fast, but I think there are contingencies. But what I would say is we got to judge Trump on the results of things that he's already done. And at times he's done things that have kind of inflamed the base. And then afterwards we look back and we're just like, okay, that shit makes sense now. 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, a year later. Trump is a brilliant man who's not going to be forced. He's just not. I have that level of confidence in him until he fails, and then that'll change. But he hasn't yet. And so I think it's a very measured response of what he did here. I think, like you said, over the next 10 days, there's going to be a lot that we see that's going to help us evaluate this. How does that civilian government, that's something that you've cued off to me that I'm really going to be paying attention to the next 7 days, is how does this civilian government respond? But here's the other thing that I would challenge everybody to pay attention to. How does China respond? What are they saying? What's their leadership saying? What's their stock market look like? Like, I'm going to be analyzing the hell out of China on this because, I know everybody, I love my Q community. I'm part of it, right? And a lot of people isolate it to a statement that's in there that's quite a few times, and it's impactful, and it's saving Israel for last. And because I've shared this with you, when I look at things through a tactical operations mindset, why in the world would you ever say who the final boss is? Like, it makes zero sense to do that. As a matter of fact, I would do a diversion from who I thought the final boss was, because again, it's not only good guys that read these things and analyze them. There's these 3 books, grab these real quick. We've all read them, you know, from the General and Boone, 5GW, The Role of the Church, and AI. And every time one of these books was released, there's one more time if you guys want to get a screenshot of that stuff. Every time one of these books was finally released, within a few months after that, we were in the endeavor of those topics. And I say this now, I talked about in a show that I did on my own, one I did with Josh and one where I was a guest on. And the only reason I say it publicly now is because the General has, you know, but over a year ago, you know, Boone had provided me some information on this book and let me look into it. And this book was focused on China. And the General came out, and this was a few weeks ago now, and announced that they have this book, but they haven't released it. And the contents of this book reaffirm my position that there's going to be some type of conflict with China, whether it's on their ground, our ground, or something, but there's going to be something that's going to be irrefutable that this is a war with China. I personally think that this is the only true war that Trump is going to have. And I think that what Trump has been doing with the relationships in the Middle East is he's positioning himself for that, because everyone will make the easy argument that, oh, it's this kinetic battle, it's this, but I don't believe it is. I truly believe this goes down to artificial intelligence. You know, this is just my opinion. One of the things that I've, you know, studying some of these people that are, you know, in the AI industries, you know, the ones that run these big or all these different ones, the ones here in the States, the ones in Europe, the ones in China. And the one thing that all these people agree on, even though they all hate each other, is that whoever obtains it first has it forever. Like you can't catch up after that. Once somebody reaches AGI or sentient, whatever you want to go, whoever gets there first, that's it. They are the dominant force of the entire world. Second, just by the nature of what it is, second place could never catch up because the AI would know and would always. So it's just you just can't, right? Mm-hmm. And when you look at Venezuela and the oil that's there, China. You know, a lot of people say, well, China's not heavily dependent on Venezuela oil, because when you go look it up, yeah, it doesn't say that. But if you look up the companies that China does get its oil from, a lot of it is shell companies coming from Venezuela and from Iran.
It's Iran, yeah, 60%. 60% of their oil comes from Iran.
100%. Now people say, yeah, but you don't need oil for artificial intelligence. And that's a correct statement. Artificial intelligence is dependent on energy, but not oil. But the things to build the infrastructure for the energy that artificial intelligence needs is absolutely dependent on oil. So when this goes back all the way to Hillary Clinton, you know, with the SAP programs or special access programs, and gave that information over to China, China was all of a sudden leap years ahead of us because of that leak technology that was there. So I think what we're seeing right now is Trump putting the pinch on their ability to develop the infrastructure for the technology he already knows they have because they stole it. It was given to them. And I think this is a lot, not the only thing that what's going on, because we do have a globalist problem. All these other problems that we've talked about at length on all the shows that we're a part of are all absolutely real. But I do think that that scenario is playing out in all this as well. And so my eyes are on that stuff.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, when it comes to Q, I would really look more at the infiltration, not invasion line. And the question is, who infiltrated who? And people will say, oh, the communists infiltrated. Okay, but like, what does that mean? Like, yeah. It's much bigger than just that. It's much bigger than just the cultural Marxists that run your universities. That's only a very small facet of it. It's a much bigger infiltration than just that. And that's what I was getting at earlier when I was talking about what happened with the IRGC, what happened with the 12-Day War, what did China realize upon that? And what happened was Mossad infiltrated them over decades and took over, and then basically shut down the defenses, lowered the gates to let the enemy's army in last year to do the attack. So that's what I think we should be focused on, is the infiltration, not invasion. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of countries that have have influence over our government, but how many wars have we started over the past 12 months for China? How many wars have we started over the past 12 months for Russia? You know, how many wars have we started over the past 12 months for Venezuela, right? None. The answer is zero. But we've started a number of wars for Israel. That's concerning to me. That's very concerning to me that we have done so much for this tiny country that has absolutely no strategic value for us whatsoever. And really means nothing to us other than the sentimental religious values that that the land represents, that has nothing to do with their political system or their government. So that's where I landed. And yeah, I mean, we just have to see what happens. I think we just have to, like, I'm somebody who every single time something crazy would happen, I'm like, with Trump saying the Gaza Riviera, I was like, all right, everyone pump the brakes. I don't think he's actually going to do this. I don't think he's actually going to pull everyone out of Gaza. He didn't. He walked that back. Netanyahu didn't, but he did. We could see another rug pull here. We could see another rug pull here, like maybe. But the fact that Eric Prince doesn't really have a take and is disappointed with like the initial optics of this makes me feel better, because I feel the same way. Like I am a little disappointed with the initial optics of it. However, I'm reserving judgment. I'm withholding belief, withholding judgment until I see the whole thing kind of play out.
Yeah. First, a shout out to my boy over there on YouTube. He was a guest with me in CanCon on SitRep, based in bias. He says, I got suspended on X. Shoot me an email, bro. alpha@the AlphaWarriorShow.tv, and I'll see what I can do to help you out. Solid dude, solid, just a solid bet right there, you guys. Let me ask you this question real quick, Ghost, before I let you run. I'd lost my train of thought a little bit. Oh, the Board of Peace. Do you expect something to come out of there here this, maybe Monday, Tuesday? Because everybody's gonna be like, well, what the hell, with all the money that was put into it, and then this happens?
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I mean, the Board of Peace, like with that happening concurrently to this, is pretty interesting. So the Board of Peace, the way it's supposed to work is it's supposed to have all these different committees. The only committee that's been formed so far is the Gaza committee. So its focus is obviously Gaza, not Iran. And Iran was not part of the Board of Peace, right? It was all the Arab countries and others. I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But I mean, the sovereign alliance is really the bigger question to me. Like, because when you talk about going to war with China, like, I think we kind of want like war to be a thing of the past for the most part. Like, we want war to, like, it's not that we're ever going to get rid of war. I mean, war is just going to be part of human nature. But, I think one of the things that was really positive from what we saw over the past 6 years developing is all the economic entanglement. As we are getting away from the globalist system where you have these regional authorities that dictate how people trade and interact, like NAFTA, TPP, that kind of stuff, the EU, and you get into bilateral trade agreements, which is what everyone's doing now. The Saudis are the ones who really made that popular. The economic entanglement is what keeps people incentivized not to go to war, because it's like, well, if I bomb the shit out of your industry, I'm actually damaging my own industry because I get 60% of my oil from you, right? It's like, that's how economic entanglement disincentivizes kinetic warfare. Soft war, if you've read that, like the book that, or the paper that G Money always pushes, that's what that talks about, soft war. Like, if everyone's trading in Bitcoin and I bomb the shit out of your cities and I destroy all your Bitcoin mining facilities and the price of Bitcoin goes down, now I've cut off my own nose because the price of my Bitcoin now goes down. That's the idea behind software. It's the same kind of concept. So like, there's going to be war at all time, like always, but is it going to be kinetic, or is it going to be like cyber information, narrative, like whatever, like, yeah, like that kind of stuff. I think if we want to get to the golden age, we really need to focus on how do we get there without, like, are we really going to bomb our way to the golden age, or are we going to negotiate our way to the golden age? And I think that's actually the path forward. And so I would like to see us focus on the negotiation part of it, understanding there's always going to be bad actors, understanding there's going to be people who are going to try to subvert it and stop it. But we have to be strong enough to figure out who those people are and get rid of them, right? And, to the extent that an entire country can be blamed for not allowing us to go to the golden age, well, is it the entire country's fault, or is it bad actors in that country who have undue influence on our political system, right?
I'll say bad actors every single time, and I don't care what country you're talking about. That to include China, to include North Korea, to include all the big scary monsters they've always told us about. I think there's an absolute distinction between governments and people. It's been a great conversation, brother. I really do appreciate you And I thank you for bringing up that Eric Prince clip, because I probably wouldn't have seen that for quite some time. We got a couple.
It's funny how you talked about the ground invasion before he even brought it up. So,
so it's like very interesting. I've got a couple rumble rants that came in. So we'll do these real quick. $5 from Yasmin19 Alpha. I need some assurance that military leadership for both the U.S. and Israel are covering all contingencies. Hearing that U.S. forces have been killed, injured in Iraq had me worried. When Trump came out and did that opening speech that was 8 minutes and 8 seconds or 6 seconds, and he identified that we're probably gonna have casualties, that told me that this was going to be some dangerous operations. And the other thing too, if you go and you read, we lost 3, and I believe there were 5 that were injured, and they wouldn't provide information. However, they did identify that they're injured by shrapnel. And we don't have, the ground troops in the normal sense that are deployed in Iran or in this area. My speculation here is that there were special forces that are operating and got hurt, because the other part of the article says that these ones that were injured were shrapnel. They're getting them back into play, which is something that you would probably see more with special forces. Your normal infantry or ground, or if they would have hit like a headquarters or something like that, they wouldn't be putting them back in there. They'd be taking them somewhere else, because there's a lot of people that can do that job. So putting them back into play tells me that these are probably special forces troops that were hit and operating somewhere out there. Whether it was a bomb, missile, we don't know. So I will tell you, Yasmin, I won't speak for Israel, but I will tell you that when you have, General Kane that's there, you can absolutely bet that you're talking about the top military minds that are involved on the U.S. side of this. So hopefully that gives you some assurance. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Ghost.
No. I agree with you.
All right, $5 coming in from Deucey Club. I was going to ask on Q After Dark, but maybe get Ghost's opinion. You and Josh have talked a lot about Rigged for Red. What does this really mean? Ready for China? They are connected to Iran. I don't think it's referencing China. It's a military term when you're getting ready for combat. Go ahead, Ghost.
It's a submariner's term. Rigged for Red. It's when you the submarine goes silent, right? And they turn off all the lights, they turn off all the anything that makes sound. And basically it's like they're undetectable, right? So it's like Q going offline for many years and just being like, hey, just because we're silent doesn't mean we're not here. It just means you're not going to hear from us because we're going into attack mode. Yeah. That's what you meant. And again, I just think we need to try our best to move away from the nation state idea of war, because that is what the neocons want you hyper focused on. Hey, Iran's the problem. Hey, China's the problem. Hey, Russia's the problem. If we can just go fight Russia, if we can get all the Americans on one team to go fight Russia, then people will stop messing around with, the deep state, and we can start focusing on the real enemy over there. I don't know if you saw the clip the other day of those Israelis talking about the Tucker Carlson, Mike Huckabee interview. She's like, can't we just go back to owning the libs? Can't we talk about the Democrats? Why are we still talking about Israel? That's what they want. They want you to go back to owning the libs. They want you to go back to making fun of, AOC. That's what they want you to do. They don't want you talking about, who might actually be controlling your State Department.
Well, on top of that, if you keep addressing the threat, inevitably some of the groups you used to make fun of, you're going to find yourself shoulder to shoulder with them, because you're going to find them making fun of the same threat you are. And then you look over and you're like, hey, you're supposed to be a crazy lib with green hair that I make fun of. And right now we're both making fun of the same person. That's legitimate unity right there that they don't want to see. Rigged for Red, on top of that, even in law enforcement, a lot of the patrol cars are outfitted with, you'll see them with the yellow light on, but when you go into tactical mode, you'll switch it and that light turns to red, because you can still read, you can still do your maps. It just, those don't get picked up on other
hunting at night too. If you've ever been hunting at night, you use red lights because the animals can't see the red lights, and the red light doesn't travel as far.
Dollar for dollar, NC Cheney. BP has run the Iranian oil industry since 1908, so the cabal has been in control forever. Go look at one of the Operation Gladio series that I did with Colonel. We talked about BP. That was a couple years ago. She did a phenomenal job on explaining that too. $5 from Jojo Allen, donating my lunch money. Well, thank you,
Generous
Jojo. I will definitely enjoy my lunch knowing that it came as a contribution from you. So thank you. And then dollar for dollar, NC Cheney again. Yes, BP is still in control of oil through all regimes.
Yes, that is correct.
So
including the Ayatollah, they continue to control the oil. So just ask yourself, what does that mean?
All right. One last one from Rumble, folks. And then after that, I'll tell you guys how to find Ghost, and we'll hear of anything that he has coming up for you guys. If you or someone you love struggles with blood sugar and A1C, you need to hear this. It's well known that expensive meds and popular shots have dangerous side effects, while Creator's Bounty has developed the perfect alternative. It's an herbal supplement called Elytrium. Elytrium is a 100% natural formula that is proven dramatically to lower your blood sugar and A1C. Uses 7 healthy ingredients, non-stimulants, no junk. These 7 ingredients would cost you over $150 if you bought them all separately. But here's the best part. There are no bad side effects, only good ones. We're talking sugar cravings gone, inflammation reduced, and stable energy all day with 0 crashes. Seriously. Most people are getting better results than they did on the harsh meds, but without the risk. One case that demonstrates the power of Elytrium is from Indiana. A woman in her 60s using only Elytrium was able to drop her A1C from 13.6 to 6.2 in just 3 months. Wow. Well, this is a mind-blowing case. It is common to achieve healthy A1C and blood sugar levels for most folks. Elytrium is made in the USA at an FDA registered facility, fully tested, and is backed by a no questions asked 90-day money-back guarantee. The friendly folks at Creator's Bounty offer fast and free shipping from Oklahoma. Head over to creatorsbounty.com/rumble and take advantage of this special offer today. And I'm going to go back to the top because they actually give a way to pronounce it. So I want to see how close I came to getting it right. Elytrium. So maybe I got it a little close enough, folks. But again, that link will be down in the description. If you're watching the replay, there's a QR code on the screen if you're watching on Rumble, as well as the live chat. So make sure you guys go and help support the people, support this show. Badlands.substack.com. You have a tremendous amount of work that's over there, Ghost. Anything you want to bring to people's attention?
Yeah, just the Substack in general. Please go over there and subscribe for free. We put out a daily news brief. I am the Sunday night editor, meaning the news brief that comes out on Monday morning is mine. And then Burning Bright and Ash trade off doing the other 4 days of the week. So yeah, go subscribe there, and then you can find me on the Badlands Rumble page, but also on X, goes to BPH.
Right on. And you guys have, I mean, it's been going for a little bit with the Blitz, because I hear a lot of people talking about that.
Yeah, we just did our 6th episode. So we recorded on Friday morning, and then we put it out Saturday morning just to give some content for Saturday, because not a lot of people put out content on Saturday. So Ash and I recorded it on Friday morning, and then of course we put it out Saturday morning. And I guess the Iran thing had already started by then. So we certainly didn't talk about that, but we talked about everything else. So.
Right on, folks. Make sure you guys go and support all that work. Ghost, appreciate it, brother. Enjoy the rest of your day with your family, and I'll catch you guys tonight with Josh on Q After Hours. So God bless and Semper Fi.